Let's welcome Lorenza Mondada. Thank you.
Agradeço, Paulo, para a apresentação e os tradutores para as versões português e espanhol e também as organizadoras pelo convite. É para mim prazer e uma honra de voltar ao Brasil. Eu sei que a situação é muito difícil agora em Brasil, mas a própria organização desta conferência mostra que é importante continuar a trabalhar e a lutar com determinação em nosso compromisso científico. Tenho orgulho de juntar-me aos colegas brasileiros nesse esforço. And I'm sorry, I have to switch to English. For my presentation, you will be able to follow it on the different slides. Las versiones portuguesa y española son un poco, no es la última versión, entonces si pueden mirar a la versión inglesa es la más, es la última, pero también las otras pueden funcionar. Okay. I work currently on issues of knowledge. I'm interested in issues of knowledge where knowledge is absolutely central in a variety of settings, from school to work to everyday life. And I don't forget that we are in a so-called knowledge society, and I'm interested in trying to unpack what this means in terms of situated practices. So the question that I try to ask is, how are these issues, these epistemic issues, dealt in situated, practical, commonsensical, and also sensorial ways within ordinary actions that make life in a society? And what I will propose is a praxeological view on knowledge. It's not about abstract knowledge, not knowledge in the brain, not knowledge in the books, but knowledge as it emerges, is achieved, is recognized within social actions. And this means for me also an intersubjective view on knowledge. Knowledge does not belong to individuals, but is publicly established, negotiated, contested in different forms of social interaction. So here I propose a study of how knowledge is claimed, debated, built, acknowledged in situ in an institutional setting characterized by asymmetries of knowledge and by the importance of knowledge-related issues such as expertise, taste, and connoisseurship. I focus on food shops and more generally on food. Food is emerging as a very interesting field where issues not only of knowledge and language, but also of economy, of social order and inequalities, of normativity, of culture, of socialization. All these questions that are absolutely central can be asked and debated in relation to food. Related to economy, I think that new consumption practices in the new local economy are quite interesting to observe, inclusive when they target traditional as well as new and expensive products. And also as they include environmental and ethical concerns. We know that food is a powerful place for reproducing social order and norms. It's a place that produces distinction à la Bourdieu. And it also produces things like ethnic culinary stereotypes and also food inequalities, which is, I think, a major topic that will come up in the next years. It's also a field where cultural and normative issues are very present. Gastronomy is part of the heritage, the cultural heritage. It's part of also a rhetorics of terroir and authenticity. It's also a place of socialization, and currently issues of educational challenges in matters of alimentation are absolutely huge. And last but not least, It's a field where many layers of knowledge are intertwined, and that's what I will discuss here. I will focus on a specific, very specific setting, cheese shops. You will see a lot of cheese shops around Europe here, and I claim that this is not just a commercial product. It's a product that carries a lot in terms of identity and of culture. It is strongly related to local identity, but also has implications for the sense of otherness and alterity. In specialized shops where you can have between 100 or 200 cheeses to choose from, interesting issues of knowledge, expertise emerge, issues that are always very normatively driven. In the corpus that we will see, it's interesting to think about countries with strong cheese traditions and countries where this is not the case. I have very traditional but also very posh shops, and I have novices and expert customers. This focus might seem mundane and even anecdotal, but it reveals more general dynamics of reproduction and resistance relative to knowledge, and it constitutes a perspicuous terrain where to demonstrate how a systematic praxeological and interactional analysis of knowledge is possible. And those are the two issues I want to tackle here. The microdynamics of reproduction and resistance relative to knowledge, and the analytical way in which we can observe and systematize them. I will basically discuss issues of food and knowledge related to three ways, in a way, three possible ways in which we can tackle knowledge, issues of learning, situated informal learning, issues of expertise, and issues of taste. Related to situated learning, there is an interest for less formal, say informal or workplace situations in which people learn. There is a growing interest in looking how people can learn in places that are not configured for learning. And this prompts, for example, an interest for informal learning within what G calls affinity spaces. And I think that in this respect, communities of amateurs, rather in a French sense than in a UK sense, amateurs, lovers, connoisseurs are communities that are very interesting to tackle, to see alternative practices of learning. I'm also interested in how knowledge features in interaction, as I was saying, less as a mental state than as ways of engaging in situated action, a la Ryle, if you want, where demonstrating knowledge, giving reasons, making inferences in interaction is on the focus. In CA recently, in conversational analysis, there are many discussions about epistemics, and my take on that is to highlight maybe a bigger diversity of types of knowledge that we can tackle in this perspective. Knowledge is not reducible to just information and integrates different epistemic practices, including expertise, amateurship, connoisseurship. And although in a lot of cases we focus on verbal epistemic practices, we don't have to forget more embodied and sensuous forms of expertise, and that's why I'm interested in tasting, and hopefully I will finish on that. The data I work on are cheese shops in various places. I have posh cheese shops like this one in Madrid, or this one in London, or that one in Paris. But I have also, for example, cheese stands in markets like here in Helsinki, or traditional cheese shops like here in Basel. And my corpus has been collected thanks to a very generous project I was awarded by the Academy of Finland. That's why I am not only in Basel, but also at the University of Helsinki currently, where I was able to collect data in a dozen of European languages with the help of my team in Helsinki and my team in Basel. For the team in Basel, Sarah Kehl is here. For the team of Helsinki, Katarina Arjumpa is here too, and without my collaborators, this work would never have been possible. You will see a few of these things in the talk where I tackle epistemic issues observed in a perspicuous setting where ordinary, mundane practices recurrently show the relevance of knowledge as addressed by the participants. There is a triple focus. The main focus is on action. In the CA literature, we know that knowledge is very important to carry on a variety of practices. It's important to choose the relevant reference to persons, for example, as Shegloff was discussing, is relevant for the way in which we format actions like questions and assessments. And here I will also speak about questions and also requests. I'm especially interested in the way in which participants show that knowledge is at stake. This might not be systematically the case in all social contexts, but it is definitely the case here. Knowledge is consequential for the formatting of actions, and I'm interested in how actions are formatted and also how they are responded to, and how responses exhibit an orientation to the knowledge displayed in the previous action. The focus is on the participants' perspectives in the sense that I'm not interested in an abstract, decontextualized definition of knowledge, but I'm interested in how knowledge is own, claimed, displayed by somebody, and how it is attributed and recognized by other people. This is a multimodal CA approach. I will not do any introduction to CA here, but let's just say or remind that this kind of perspective has a strong focus on the actions that participants do, the format, how are these actions designed, both verbally and in an embodied way, and how these actions feature in sequences of actions. That is basically how they are responded to. The methodology I follow in this study is based on video recordings of naturally occurring encounters, so shop encounters in all Europe. Those have been obtained with the informed consent of the participants, so we are okay with the ethics, and I would say with the deontology too. And for organizing the sequential analysis that I will show you, I have picked up, on the one side, explicit claims of knowledge by the customers, like, I don't know this cheese, or I know this cheese. And on the other side, implicit displays of knowledge in specific actions where the customer doesn't claim what he knows, but displays what he knows, for example, by asking questions or by making requests. And I look at the way in which these epistemic displays are consequential for the next action. I'm particularly interested in the way in which responses to these actions might just reproduce the claims and manifestations, and you will see asymmetries, or how these claims and displays can be corrected and subverted or resisted to. The important two last points. The idea is to show you how it is possible to do a systematic analysis of these phenomena. This is an important, I think, message of this kind of methodology. And also to show you how these phenomena, these practices can be described across languages. And here my aim is not to search a priori for differences, but to look whether there are similar organizational patterns in different languages. We can talk about the differences, it's fascinating, but that will be the object of another talk. So the outline of the analysis is the following. I begin with the customer claiming or displaying that he doesn't know. I pursue with the client claiming or displaying that she knows. I will probably skip part 3, where the salesperson checks whether the client knows or doesn't know. And for me, it's important to do part 4, because in part 4, I will discuss ways of lecturing in the cheese shop keeper explanations, but also other ways of learning through direct access via tasting. And I will speak of autonomous access to new forms of embodied knowledge. So first part, the customer claims or displays not knowing. We are in an institutional setting characterized by an institutional asymmetry. We have complementary rights and obligations of customers and salespersons. Interestingly, this institutional asymmetry constitutes also an epistemic asymmetry, and we will see how the two play together. As we know, categories are bound to specific form of knowledge. So, for example, the salesperson is supposed to know what he or she is selling, and this is especially the case in cheese shops. But I want to say a word of caution in relation to that. This is not a pre-existing epistemic status. So it is not that because a person is, for example, a seller, that she has an epistemic status, a superior epistemic status. This is something that is constantly exhibited, renewed, and possibly negotiated or possibly contested through epistemic stances. That is, the shopkeeper, for example, will manifest in her actions that she is K+, so that she has knowledge. But this might be contested by the client, as we will see. So there is a possible redistribution of these asymmetries, especially when the customers are connoisseurs, are experts, or have some local knowledge, or just resist to what the salespersons try to make of them. I distinguish between claiming knowledge, typically in the form I know X, and displaying knowledge, typically in the form of I ask a question, and by asking a question, I display that I don't know what I am asking about. Adopting K-, so an inferior knowledge or inferior epistemic position is important for what follows. So in CA, we always ask what's next. So generally, adopting a K- position is followed by a sequence expansion. So when the customer presents herself as an unknowing person, the seller will respond by implementing a series of actions that will produce some knowledge. And this is not done just for the pleasure and the sake of knowledge. It's done also because we are within a commercial encounter, and in most of the cases, this leads to decisions concerning buying or not buying a product. So what happens when customer claims K-? So when the customer says, I don't know X. Here I do a little parenthesis. For most of you, it's absolutely evident, but not for the speakers, the monolingual speakers of English. In English, there is only one verb, I know or I don't know. As you know, in other languages, Romance languages, for example, we have two verbs. So, for example, in Portuguese, saber e conhecer. Same in Spanish, in French we have connaître, savoir, in Italian sapere, conoscere, and this is also the case in Germanic languages, so wissen versus kennen in German. The syntax of those two verbs is different. When you use connaître, you use that with an NP, and when you use saber, you use it with a completive clause. And this has an effect on what the semantics of these verbs, as it has been described. For connaître, you have a global apprehension and appropriation of the object, and that's what interests me here. For saber, you have rather an analytical propositional content about the properties of the object. So for example, you can say, eu não conosco o queijo Minas, però eu sei que o queijo Minas has been declared part of the Brazilian immaterial cultural heritage. So I might saber a lot of things about queijo Minas, but not conhecer o queijo Minas. And this is important, as you will see. So let's begin with the first example. The first example has been recorded in Paris. We have a customer here, and he's looking at a cheese that has this appearance, which is here. Here you have the transcript, and the video is this one.
Alors ça, c'est un cheddar jeune qui va être affiné avec de la Guinness. C'est beaucoup plus doux que ce qu'on pourrait croire. Quand on le voit, ça fait un peu impressionnant, sombre. Et en fait, en termes... Un petit peu, ouais. Je peux vous faire goûter si vous voulez. Mais vous allez voir...
So the conclusion, vous allez voir, vous allez être déçu. But that's another story. So the customer, during a while, is inspecting the cheeses and spots this cheese, which is a bit a strange cheese for a French customer. And he goes with, je connais pas ça. I don't know, connaître this. And this prompts, this is a typical sequence, it prompts the naming of the cheese. So this is a young cheddar, which will be curated with some Guinness, so it's a Guinness cheddar. And then a description, an explanation of the cheese. Here it's interesting that this cheese is a very particular cheese for well, within the French culture, let's say. And it's interesting that the description is rather a description, a sensorial description, so it's much sweeter than one could imagine. It looks impressive and dark, but it is something else. So you see that the description here refers to a lot of tasting, sensorial features, and it's quite normal or quite evident, quite straightforward that what the description ends with an offer to taste, and actually the customer will taste it. So the tasting complementing the discursive and visual characterization of the cheese. Now, interestingly, customers sometimes say, I don't know this cheese, and they relate this claim of not knowing to their identity. In this case, the couple is saying, I don't know this Beaujus, it's a cheese in Savoie. Even I am from here. I skipped the video, but the seller is saying, then we have the Beaujus, so he's offering, she is offering that cheese, and the client responds, oh yes, we will take some. Even me, I don't know too much. And the husband says also, yes, even me, I don't know whether I ever tasted this one. Although I am here since a while ago, well, since always actually. She was born in the region. So here it's interesting that je ne connais pas trop, I don't know, is embedded with claims of regional identity. As a contradictory thing, if you are from the region, you should know this cheese. And actually, the explanation of the salesperson orients towards this fact, because she gives an explanation by saying, the Beaujus is the producer of Abondance, who makes it for us. So we can say it's a cheese which is between a Comté and a Beaufort. You see that in her explanation there are at least 3 other cheeses that are mentioned. Those are also local cheeses of the same region. So by doing this kind of explanation, she is attributing some knowledge to the customer. Here too, the thing ends in offering to taste and in tasting. So we see that claims of not knowing or even of knowing are related to identity via the notion of terroir, which is so important in at least European gastronomy. Now, another way in which customers might display that they don't know is not by claiming it, but by manifesting it, typically through questions. Here we have a question, de deux mauvaises laits, the client is probably reading the etiquette on the cheese, which taste has it? And this produces a typical description with a series of features of the cheese. Interestingly, here we have je connais pas, I don't know, at the end of the sequence, which shows you the difference between savoir et connaître. Given that even now he has the explanation, so he knows savoir something, but he doesn't yet know it, connaître. It's a nice implementation of this difference, and that's why they taste, because when they taste, then they connaît. Okay, so the ultimate access to knowledge is tasting, and I will come back to that. Now, look at the form of the answers given to these questions. This is a piece in English in a cheese shop in London.
All right, madam, thanks for waiting. Okay, okay. Self-share. So it's a typical French goat from Poitou-Charentes.
This is a problem.
Flavor not very strong.
I don't know why I have a problem of this kind.
All right, madam, thanks for waiting.
Okay, I skipped that, but if I have a problem with the following one, I will have to reboot my slides. So the seller welcomes the client with, how are you, madam? Thank you for waiting. And she asks a question, what is probably this cheese like here? And like in the previous example, the seller answers celle sur chair, give the name, and then it goes into a description. Is a typical French goat from Poitou-Charentes, medium about the texture, the flavor is not very strong. So you see that the information that he gives takes this is a very normative organization where you give the normative features for the definition of the cheese, the name, the animal, the origin, the texture, the taste. And finally, he gives to taste. Now, I can at least show you when she tastes. So that's where he gives her to taste.
Very cheap, but nice flavor. So ash around, like.
Now she tastes. He looks at her.
What do you think about the celle sur chair?
And he says, what do you think about the celle sur chair? So that's what he does here in line 22. This question is interesting. What do you think about the celle sur chair? Because now the salesperson is asking a question and not anymore the customer. So tasting allows the customer to respond to a question, that is to provide for some type of knowledge about the cheese. And actually she responds not quite strong. So the tasting allows now the customer to be the source of the description rather than the seller. And this is something that I will come back in the last part. Another way in which the customer displays not knowing is by requesting with demonstratives. Demonstratives and deictics in general are a very useful practice for solving the problem of referring and ordering cheese when you don't have any idea about what you are ordering. So a good way to do is to say, I want this, and to point at the cheese. So you use the demonstrative, you use a pointing gesture, you use the gaze, and the response will be. For others, they say, I buy for somebody who is a fan of Brie, or for some Germans who are passionate of gastronomy. And I like this little, this is something to be expanded, but it's interesting to see that they express that not as I am an expert in, but I am a lover in, which shows the kind of epistemic relation that they have with this. Another manifestation here by a Danish woman buying cheese in Stockholm. She goes in and saying, I lived in France for some years, so I know Androuet from France, from Paris, and Androuet is a famous cheese shop, and affineur. So I was in France for many years. I'm not French, but I was in France for many years. You will see that this person will have some troubles in some slides. So here too, I am interested in what happens when actually the customer displays knowing. And again, we find our old woman, the Malicorne woman. She is really a very tough woman. And you will see what she does. So we joined the action where she has spoken very badly and very critically about Corsican cheeses. And now the salesperson say, because you are from Corsica. And see what happens next.
Corse. Parce que vous êtes corse vous-même, madame? Ah, d'accord. Mais sinon, j'ai du bruccio passou.
Vous avez du
bruccio passou, oui. Ah, bah, c'est plus de bruccio frais, là.
Broch.
Voilà. Broch. Excusez-moi. Pour faire un bon fiadone. Voilà.
So if we look at the transcript, we join after the customer has made a series of harsh critiques of some Corsican cheeses. The salesperson makes an inference. Because you are Corsican yourself, madam, oui. She responds. Now, the salesperson uses this information for doing the next action. And the next action doesn't predicate any knowledge, but offers a cheese that is a Corsican cheese. And so she says, sinon, j'ai du bruccio passou. I have some bruccio passou. So she's offering a Corsican cheese to somebody who has she has discovered to be a Corsican. What happens? Again, look always at repairs. It's very interesting. The client doesn't understand bruccio passou. She doesn't understand the name of the cheese of her region, and she initiates repair. You have some brr, and the salesperson said, du bruccio passou, oui. It is a little bit fresh, and she goes on. She doesn't treat that as a problem. The client here says, du bruch. And she repeats that. She does that with the very nice gesture, which makes that the salesperson ends up trying to pronounce it, bruch, voilà, and then bruch, another time, she apologizes, excusez-moi, and thereby she recognizes that she is being given another lesson or lecture about the Corsicans. They are tough people. But the salesperson does another thing which is interesting from an epistemic point of view. She says, in order to do a good fiadone. And fiadone is a typical Corsican culinary preparation. So she is displaying again that maybe she doesn't pronounce the word very well, but she can provide for something for a local delicacy. So you see how K plus and K minus are balanced in the talk. Now we find back the woman from Copenhagen who had said, I was living in France and I know who Androuet in Paris is. Now she has bought some Bria Savarin, which I hope you know because it's a wonderful, a fantastic fatty cheese. She has both a Brie Savarin, and she's very happy about that. And she goes, as the seller is packing it, she says, you see, I know my Brie. And Brie is this one. Okay, between a Brie and a Brie Savarin, maybe there is the first syllable in common, but not much more. So you have 0.3 seconds of pause, and the seller goes, it is you, very important particle in Swedish and Danish, it is you, not a Brie cheese, but it's a fresh cheese, it's quite similar. Okay, but she corrects the customer. And the fact that this correction is consequential is visible in what happens next. The client does a very low voice yeah, and then there is a pause of 3.3 seconds, a bit embarrassing, and then the salesperson says, I love Copenhagen, which is a way of changing topic. And you see that this doesn't work because there are 0.7 seconds of pause, and the Danish person doesn't respond. She goes on, so she upgrades the love for Copenhagen with fantastisk, and she gets, after 1.6 seconds, which is an eternity, she gets a yo, a very short one. So you see that these epistemic aspects are consequential for people. Now, how do you display that you know? One way is to request the cheese by naming the product. This is an example from Finland. You will see they say moi, moi, those are the greetings, and then the customer said just morbiera, which is morbier in Finnish.
Moi, jos sä laitat sen oikein, sä pystyt. Morbieriä. Joo. Semmoinen 4. Jos sä laitat sen.
And she's served. So here you have a fantastic economy, morbiera, and she gets fetched by the cheese. This is observable absolutely everywhere in French, English, Swiss, German. So, une tête de moine, s'il vous plaît, a slice of morbier, or a mimolette hätte ich gern. And the next action is fetching the cheese and asking how much you want. So the next action progresses within the encounter. There is a nice variation in the Stockholm data in Swedish, which I was interested in because it displays that in the next turn, you can display an acknowledgement of the knowledge of the customer. And here we have a customer who asks a bit brin d'amour, and he says like this. And the salesperson says oui, yes, in French. They don't speak French, she doesn't speak French. But here she says, the we that, or the yeah that you can have as a second position is here produced in French, which is the language of the cheese, if you want, the language of the brin d'amour. The same thing happens here. He says, I will hit with a crémeux du puits, and the salesperson answers oui. By saying oui, she is displaying an acknowledgement of the knowledge of the French culture by the customer. So you see that even in these cases, which are in fact non-marked cases, when you know you have no explanation, no expansion, nothing, you can mark that with this nice code switching. So the requests by names get very simple responses, and the participants move on in the encounter. Now, of course, I'm interested in not only the aligning responses, but also the disaligning responses. How can you produce a disaligning response to somebody who asks for cheese, naming the cheese and displaying that she knows? Here we have an example. French people are quite nasty about these things. You have an example where the client says, je vais prendre le Saint-Mort, and the salesperson says, le Saint-Mort, which is a nice, again, you see pronunciation becomes a kind of battlefield for exhibiting knowledge in the shop. And you see that they don't need to do that to buy this kind of cheese or to recognize this kind of cheese. So we have the seller correcting the customer pronunciation, but before we had the customer correcting the salesperson pronunciation. Now, there are other epistemic incongruencies that might be a little bit more tensed, and this is the case of this customer. He looks for a while, and he reads a label, the label of Sous-Maitrin, which is a soft French cheese. And as soon as he reads the label, she moves on to explain, Sous-Maitrin is a cheese that comes from. So she produces the kind of encyclopedic information sheet. Look at what happens. He will stop her in overlap, displaying that he knows, and she will apologize.
Alors, je vais prendre. Attendez, qu'est-ce que je regarde?
So inspect. Name.
Sous-Maitrin, c'est un fromage.
Oui, j'en ai mangé, oui. C'est un peu comme
entre un chaours et un époisse, ouais, voilà. Entre un chaours et un minster, entre un chaours et un époisse. Ça a un plus d'amertume qu'un minster, voilà.
Ouais. Tiens, bah, je vais vous prendre ce demi. Ouais.
So he decides to buy it. Let's have a look at what happens. So he is inspecting the cheeses, and he reads the label, Le Sous-Maitrin, and he does it in a mumbled way as if he would speak to himself. And as soon as he mentioned this name in this way, so this my display rather K- than K+. He didn't come in and say, je veux du Sous-Maitrin, which would be clearly K+. But here the way in which he does it allows the seller to infer that he doesn't know that cheese. So she offers an explanation, Sous-Maitrin, it's a cheese, and as soon as she begins, so he overlaps where she's saying, le Sous-Maitrin c'est un. So very, very, at the beginning, very early overlap. And he says, oui, oui, ça j'en ai mangé. Yes, yes, I have already eaten of this. And so far, so good, but it's interesting that she says, okay, excusez-moi, okay, sorry. So she apologizes for having initiated an explanation, treating him as K-. So this is quite interesting, but interestingly, she goes on, and she says, she goes on with her description between a source and a. Source is another cheese. She's projecting, so a source and a, she's projecting the name of another one, and again, in overlap, he produces the name and the époisse. So here you have what in the literature is called a collaborative completion. One speaker begins, the other one ends, but you see that this is a completely competitive co-production of this utterance. And why it is competitive, there is a competition for the display of knowing best what kind of cheese is that. And it goes on, because he adds et l'époisse, she repeats and an époisse, right? But then she does another formulation between a source and a minster. So she expels the époisse, and she thereby corrects what he was saying. So you see that this fight, in a way, goes on for several turns. At the end, he decides, nonetheless, to buy this one. So if we look at what happens when the customer either claims or displays K- or displays or claims K+. So either he says, I don't know, or I'm not from here, or I know I am from here, and or he displays not knowing by requesting with a demonstrative, or he displays knowing by requesting with a name. So you see that you have alternative formats that display alternative epistemic positions. And what is systematic is that in the second position, you will have different actions. When you have a display or a claim of not knowing, you will have expansions. When you have displays of knowing, you have no expansions and the progression into finalization of the purchase. Now, in all the cases, we can have disalignments and disagreements. For example, the customer might refuse the seller's explanation, the customer might correct the salesperson, so going from a K- to a K+ position, or vice versa, the seller can correct a customer who has displayed a K+ position. I have a third collection which I skip, but where I looked at the seller, what happens when the seller asks, do you know this cheese? And the response can be yes or no. And again, if it's yes, we have discontinuation. If it's no, we have discontinuation. So this collection of knowledge checks completely corroborates the distribution that I have in the other two collections. So that's why I skip it. And I go to the last part, which is about knowledge and tasting. So we have seen that tasting is an alternative to explaining. When the customer displays K-, there is an expansion of the sequence, and in this expansion we can have two big types of actions. On the one side, explaining. I have shown that it is normatively and conventionally organized with the type of cheese, the animal, the texture, the taste, etc. And the alternative action is giving to taste, either giving to taste or offering to taste. And by the way, when we have an offer to taste and the client has displayed K-, he will accept the offer to taste. When we have an offer to taste and the client has exhibited or exhibits a K+ position, we have a refusal to taste. So again, this is very, very nicely systematic. In this last part, I concentrate on tasting. What happens to tasting? And I think that for people interested possibly in learning, it might be interesting to look at tasting as a form of learning and as a radically alternative form of learning than receiving information in the form of an explanation. To make a long story short, I have two contexts. In one context, tasting happens in silence. In the other context, tasting is embedded in the salesperson's verbal provision of information. And I will show you that this has radical consequences. Context 2 is the one that interests me. Context 1, very shortly, this was the file that was not playing, so maybe we'll play now. We join the Celle-sur-Cher customer as the salesperson offers her to taste.
How are you, madam? Thanks for waiting.
So I give you the entire.
Celle-sur-Cher. So it's a typical French goat from Poitou-Charentes. So it's like a medium about the texture, about the flavor.
This is the explanation.
Not too goaty, but a nice flavor.
Now it gives to taste.
It's ash around. Like.
She takes it. She makes a step away. She looks at the cheese. She eats.
What do you think about the Celle-sur-Cher?
Yes, what do you think about the Celle-sur-Cher?
Yes, I think, so yeah, now you can tell me which kind of goat do you looking for?
And she answers not quite strong. So what characterizes this context is that there is some silence, and during the silence, the customer engages in the sensorial access and experience of the cheese. And the sequence is closed by the customer producing an evaluation, not quite strong. Now, I'm interested in alternative courses of action where the testing is not done in silence, but is embedded in the salesperson talk. In this case, the salesperson talks quite a lot, providing information about the sensorial experience that the customer is supposed to have. I show you first, I have two examples. I show you a first example that begins with, it's recorded in Madrid, it begins with the seller offering a fuego al pitú, And he says, pues, ¿qué te parece? Una fuega el pitú, ¿lo conoces? Es un queso que. So here we have the naming of the cheese, we have the check whether the person knows or doesn't know, and you see that he doesn't even stop to have a response. He goes on with, it's a cheese, so he goes on with the explanation. The proof that the customer doesn't know it is that she initiates a repair. So again, repair is significant. The salesperson repeats, una fuega el pitú, and the client says, no tengo ni idea, no tengo ni idea, which is a strong way of claiming not knowing. The result is a long explanation and then an offer to taste. The sellers offers 2 a fuega el pitú, one normal and one with some chili. This is what happens.
Mira, pruébalo. Te voy a dar a probar primero este, ¿vale? Y luego este.
Sí, porque si está al revés,
claro, mira.
muy líquida, muy
Sí,
líquida.
es que seguro
Esto.
que era Butichi. Eso. Butichi. Sí,
Ahora,
eso es.
y ahora te voy a dar a probar. Sí, es un queso muy rico. ¿Qué pasa? Y este ya verás. Este es sorprendente, ya verás. Te pica al final, no te pica. Ahora no lo vas a apreciar el picor.
Se suele estar de vez en cuando así.
Vale.
Pues yo vi un poquito de brie.
Un poco de brie. ¿Cuánto se podría llevar?
Como un incendio de eso, yo creo, si para comer ahora, ¿no?
Es un picorcillo. ¿Ves? Es al final, te pica al final. Además es bastante persistente en boca. Es sorprendente. Hombre, pues depende del grado que te quieres arriesgar.
So it's quite fast, but basically it's interesting because we have 2 instances of tasting. The first bits is offered by the salesperson not saying anything. She chooses the first cheese, he doesn't say anything, and she produces actually an assessment. Este es agradable. Okay, so here she has been in context 1, she has been able to taste in an autonomous way, and she has produced an assessment. In the second case, she tastes, but he goes on explaining what she will feel. So he says, this is, este es sorprendente, ya verás, te pica al final, so te pica, no te pica ahora, te vas a picar, no le vas a apreciar el picor, un picorcillo, and he practically explains what she's not yet feeling, and finally what she is feeling, so this bitterness, this picar of the cheese. As a result, the customer just goes with a C at the end. That is, what the customer does is that she just aligns with the description of the salesperson. These 2 versions are quite interesting to contrast because the first one allows the customer to produce an autonomous evaluation of the cheese, an autonomous judgment, whereas the second one, where the salesperson talks in a continuous way, basically cuts down this autonomy of access and rather makes the customer aligning with the discourse of the cheese seller. So I skipped the last example, but basically what I want to show is that in these examples are the different affordances in terms of learning and of accessing to knowledge, of explaining versus tasting. So in this talk, I have tried to show you the systematic relations across settings and languages between claims and displays of knowledge and the next actions. I've shown ways of aligning with these claims and displays, but also of disaligning. That is, of revising, renegotiating, resisting, and opposing attributions of knowledge. I've also shown that through these sequences you can have different types of knowledge, rather discursive types of knowledge, or rather embodied types of knowledge. And this holds across languages and cultures. This shows the generality of the sequential organization of epistemic actions in interaction. So we discovered that the cheese shop ends up to be a fantastic locus of socialization and of learning, but where this learning is mixed with other issues, identity issues, economic issues, and knowledge issues. So I hope to have shown you that by looking at a highly specific setting, we can understand something about about epistemic issues and about epistemic practices as they unfold in interaction, and especially in asymmetric forms of interactions. I thank you.